America is being told that higher food prices are simply the unavoidable result of inflation, tariffs, drought, fuel prices, labor costs, and shortages. But there's another part of the story that doesn't get nearly enough attention. What happens when a handful of enormous corporations control multiple links in the American food chain? We hear constantly about the farmer. We hear about the rancher. We hear about the grocery store. We hear about Trump. But what about the corporations sitting in the middle? Today we're talking about Cargill, the big four meat packers, and why I believe the Trump administration is right to start challenging the amount of control these companies have over the American food supply. When people hear Cargill, they may think beef. That's only a small part of the picture. Cargill operates grain, oilseeds, animal feed, livestock, meat processing, food ingredients, commodity trading, and transportation. Think about what that means. A company can potentially be involved before an animal is raised, while that animal is being fed, when agricultural commodities are bought and sold, when livestock is processed, and when ingredients eventually move into the food manufacturing system. That is an enormous amount of influence over the food chain. And Cargill is not the only giant corporation involved. That is why this discussion simply cannot be the price of a hamburger. It's about control. Now look specifically at beef. 4 major companies dominate cattle processing in the United States: Cargill, Tyson Foods, JB, and National Beef Products. I've worked for all of them in the past. Together, the 4 largest processors handle the overwhelming majority of steer and heifer processing in this country. That creates a simple economic problem. If you're a rancher, how many serious buyers are there for your cattle? And if you're a consumer, how many companies ultimately control how much of the beef moving toward the grocery store? That doesn't automatically prove illegal behavior, but it does mean we should be asking questions. Because the competitive market works best when buyers compete against buyers and sellers compete against sellers. When 4 companies dominate a market, competition can become a very difficult thing. Here's the question that bothers me. If food prices are going through the roof, why aren't American farmers and ranchers becoming incredibly wealthy? Consumers keep paying more. I do. I just paid $7 for one pound of hamburger meat. 80-20. Yet producers continually talk about tight margins, rising costs, and difficulty staying profitable. Somebody is making money between the farm and the grocery store. So where's it going? That doesn't mean every increase at the supermarket is caused by Cargill, Tyson, JBS, or National Beef. Drought does exist. Feed costs are real. Fuel costs are real. Labor costs are real. Tariffs can affect prices, but not to the extent that's being portrayed. Inflation absolutely affects prices. What causes inflation? Somebody's driving it. But those explanations should not prevent us from looking at the structure of the market itself. The American farmer has become an easy target for the explanation of why food prices are going up. People see beef at the grocery store for a certain price and assume a rancher is getting rich. That's not necessarily how the system works. The farmer doesn't control what the processor charges the retailer. A rancher doesn't determine the supermarket price of a ribeye. Grain producers don't determine what a box of cereal costs. There are processors, traders, distributors, manufacturers, and retailers between the producer and the customer. That's why blaming food inflation entirely on production costs can be misleading. Blaming it on a drought is just a blatant lie. They've dealt with this for hundreds of years. Why is it just now becoming a problem at this point in time? This is where I side with President Trump. If 4 companies dominate beef processing, investigate it. If agricultural markets have become too concentrated, challenge it. If corporations have accumulated enough power that farmers have fewer places to sell and consumers have fewer meaningful competitors supplying the market, then the federal government has the legitimate reason to look into that. This isn't anti-business. I was a business manager for many, many years. Competition is supposed to be part of capitalism. The answer isn't to destroy successful companies. The answer is to make sure those companies still have to compete. Because once competition disappears, the free market starts becoming a controlled market or a monopoly. And those are two very, very different things. This is why I keep coming back to Cargill. We're not talking about one company making one product. Cargill's not just about beef. Cargill has their hand in grain, feed, livestock, dairy products, meat, multiple food ingredients throughout our entire chain of food supplies. Most manufacturers, food manufacturers, rely entirely on salt. Salt supplied by who? Cargill. Cargill is also involved in trading and transportation. When one corporation touches that many parts of the supply chain, its decision can matter far beyond one product sitting on a supermarket shelf. And that should concern people regardless of political party. Food isn't an optional product. People have to eat. Instead of simply accepting another explanation for why groceries cost more, I think Americans need to start asking different questions. How concentrated is this industry? How many companies actually control processing? How many choices does the farmer have in where he sells, when he sells, and what his price is? How many companies control the products ultimately reaching the consumers? And does the money go between the farm and the grocery store? Where does it go? And the government regulators actually protecting competition, or are they being paid for by the competition? Those questions matter far more than another politician simply telling us prices went up because of inflation. Prices went up because of a drought. Don't believe it. I don't believe the American farmer is the enemy. I don't believe the American rancher is the enemy. And I don't believe consumers should simply accept endless rising grocery prices without asking who has power inside the supply system. The real issue is concentration. When too few corporations control too much production, processing, trading, and distribution, the people on both ends of the system can lose. The farmer gets squeezed when he sells. The consumer gets squeezed when he buys. And the companies in the middle become more powerful. That's why I support the Trump administration taking a hard look at Cargill and other agricultural giants. This isn't America at war with its food producers. It's America deciding whether its food producers still have a fair market to operate in. So here's the question I want to answer. Do you believe high grocery prices are primarily a result of inflation and production costs, or have a handful of giant corporations gained too much control over the American food supply? Put it in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Is America at war with its own food suppliers? Tell me about it.